So to respectfully or properly, I guess, talk about night 2 of the Cleveland Browns draft, I think we have to start by putting this question out there, and we need an answer by the end, Anthony Moeglin. I'm going to ask, was tonight a good night or a bad night for the Cleveland Browns? And we'll see how people feel throughout the show. We'll see how people feel about it in the morning when they wake up and they sleep on this a little bit, and we'll see what we have to say about that throughout this conversation. Hi, Browns fans. Thanks for stopping by. It's Spencer German here in Berea, wrapping up from night 2. Anthony Moeglin, obviously, alongside, back on the home front. Both of us staying up extra late to hang out with you guys and reflect on everything that happened with the Cleveland Browns today. And I think the best way to describe it is it felt like it was things are going good. You're at the club and they're playing your favorite music and you're feeling good. You're dancing with a girl, whatever. And then all of a sudden, there's like the record scratch on the DJ booth, and everything just like stops. And you don't know if they're gonna like drop a beat and like go to the next song, or if like something's wrong. The power just goes out and it shuts down. That's what it felt like in the media room when the Browns submit their pick at 94 overall, and the card comes back, Dillon Gabriel, because we all knew the Browns are going to take a quarterback at some point. Nobody expected it to be Dillon Gabriel, especially when names like Shedeur Sanders, who, I mean, that's a whole conversation of its own, like why he's falling, whatever. But with Shedeur Sanders on the board, Will Howard still on the board, other players at other positions that I think value-wise made sense, like Xavier Watts is still on the board at this point going into day 3. At least I don't think he was taken out to the Browns. I was doing some other stuff, but like he's still on the board. Somebody like Rawls, the wide receiver out of why am I drawing a blank? Utah State is still on the board. Like there are a number of players that the Browns could have looked at here. They used a top 100 pick instead on Dillon Gabriel, and it was as perplexing as can be.
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly perplexing for sure. I have a story coming out in the morning that you guys can see that I wouldn't have made that pick. It's not as bad as everyone's making it out to be. This is I understand the move. I would have, if it were me, if I was in Andrew Berry's seat, I would have picked Xavier Watts because we need a safety. Xavier Watts is an awesome player, in my opinion, but they didn't do that. However, I don't think they just threw this pick away, as a lot of people do. I understand that I'm probably in the minority on that. Maybe it's the fact I see a lot of things through orange and brown glasses. But the fact of the matter is that
I think that's what it is. I think you're drinking.
It might be. There's no Kool-Aid, but it's not like I'm.
Also, Megs, how tall are you?
I'm same height as Dillon Gabriel. I'm 5'11".
Okay. So it's all coming together now. You just root for the you root for the little guy. You want the little quarterbacks to succeed because you had a very successful D3 career, but you can never get to that stage. So you see a 5'10" guy get to the NFL. Now it all makes sense. I get it.
All right, I get it. Spence, you want the real thing? Okay, here it is. There's one guy, and I want to see if you can name him. There's one guy in the last 15 drafts that had pretty much an identical entry to the NFL and is pretty much an identical profile to Dillon Gabriel. Can you name that person?
Like height-wise?
Everything. Height, experience in school, time spent in school, where he was drafted. Oh, and this player is a Super Bowl champion. Can you name that player?
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to say Kyler Murray because I know he's short.
No.
But he's not a Super Bowl champion. He's a Super Bowl champion.
Super Bowl champion. He was drafted in the last 15 years. He was picked number 74 overall. He's 5'11". He went to 2 colleges. He went to school for 5 seasons, and he's still playing in the league today.
He's still playing, man. You might. He's got to be starting then, right? Like he has to be a starter.
He might be. He's going to be competing for a starting job next year. He's going to be competing for
Joe Flacco.
Russell Wilson was drafted 74th overall.
That makes sense.
After his second stint at Wisconsin after 4 years.
Also, Joe Flacco wasn't drafted in the last 15 years either.
Yeah, dingus. He's also 6'9". Yeah, come on, guys.
I'm sorry, it's late.
It is late, and we're partying here on Cleveland Browns on SI. Encourage everyone to get in the comments.
I mean, that's a good trivia question.
I would, but Spence, I'm being very serious about it because I've thought about it a lot. And yes, I was a shorter quarterback. I certainly did not. I should never have played a snap in the NFL. I did never play a snap in the NFL in large part because I was 5'11", couldn't see over the offensive line. However, this is a guy, Dillon Gabriel, that again I wouldn't have made the.
So
pick.
you're actually taller than Dillon Gabriel. That's crazy.
I am 5'11". Yes, in 3/4. I'm the same height as Russell Wilson, and a little bit taller than Gabriel, but. The fact of the matter is that schematically, Dillon Gabriel fits with what Kevin Stefanski wants to do. And if we can get a cheap backup that doesn't have the pomp and circumstance of, hey, let's go 2 guys here, Shedeur Sanders and Will Howard, the Superman of Ohio, next year when we have a number 1 overall pick, this could be a potential long-term play where you have a guy in the backfield or as a backup that could be there for a while and could be cheap.
Okay, 2 things. So I don't disagree that he fits schematically. You bring up Russell Wilson as a comp. Russell Wilson has one of the strongest arms, maybe still does have one of the strongest arms still in football. I mean, the guy played baseball, right? Like that was something that was known about him. His deep ball is one of the best in the sport. Like it's awesome. Gabriel's more of like a timing and accuracy guy, but like he doesn't have a strong arm. And for all the conversations in this pre-draft process, mostly centered around Shedeur, about, well, hey, he can't play in Cleveland because he doesn't have the arm strength. Like, you need a guy that can throw in the wind and the rain and the hail and the sleet and the whatever, even though they're getting a dome in 4 years anyway. So, like, I can understand where, like, schematically he fits, but some of the other traits that people knocked Shedeur for, who is another quarterback that I think is the best fit in this class for Kevin Stefanski's system. And I'm not saying they should have drafted Shedeur Sanders. I'm just saying, like, if we're gonna do that with Shedeur, if we're gonna say he wouldn't have fit for XYZ reasons, not a strong arm, all this different stuff, I think the same thing sort of applies to Dillon Gabriel in some respects. Now, Gabriel might be better in other areas. He's got a little bit more athleticism to his game where he can do some RPO style stuff. His stats are off the charts, and he did it against the best teams in college football in the Big Ten this past season against an Ohio State team that won a national championship. Nonetheless, where Shedeur did it in the Big 12 again? Yeah, Big 12.
Big 12
yeah. They went back because the Pac-12 is not even in existence anymore. But anyway, like, so I get all those things, but those are my biggest pushbacks. And the other thing I'll say is number 2 here. If he is the long-term backup, which is a thought, we talked about that in the media room, he could be a guy that you're like, hey, this is our long-term answer behind whoever we're going to take a quarterback. Okay, fine. Do you use a top 100 pick on a long-term backup? That's my problem. That's my problem with this pick. We talked about some other names that were there. I just think there was better value with other players. Like, at this point, there was no harm in waiting until day 3 to get a quarterback. The Browns already told you what they're doing. They stood there at 2 and traded back, and they got 5, and they took Mason Graham, and they said, we're stockpiling for next. They didn't actually say this, but like that was a sign to everybody. We're punting on finding the future quarterback until next year with the draft capital that we got this year. We're going to use that to sort of move around the board and do what we need to do to get this guy. Okay. So if everybody was accepting that, you had other things you could have addressed with that pick and still waited on quarterback and still got a guy that at least like has the same trajectory as a Dillon Gabriel of like, hey, he's going to be a project. He's going to have to develop. It's going to take time and still sort of felt good about it. I was just under the assumption at this point, if they had waited this long, if they had passed on Shedeur this long, if they didn't take Jalen Milroe the first 4 times they had an opportunity to take Jalen Milroe, and then he got taken a couple picks before they took Gabriel, then you should have just waited till day 3 and cut your losses and seen who was there. And I still think Gabriel would have been there when they were on the clock in at 126 for what it's worth, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, ultimately, I think Gabriel's probably there when you're picking 192. Like that's my problem. Again, I sit here and bang the drum of like this isn't the end of the world. I also like 2 things can be true. I wouldn't have made this pick. Like I think this is a bad pick from a timing perspective. Value-wise, everything you just said, I totally disagree with. I'm fine with the player. I'm not fine with where he was selected. That's the problem, I think. And I think we obviously share that.
Yeah, we spent a lot. We spent this first 10 minutes here, sort of hanging on to the negative pick from today, or the pick that I think most people were perplexed and shocked. But I mean, the tweets wrote themselves. Everybody was ready to just pile on after that pick. But prior to that, Anthony, as I alluded to my metaphor about the DJ booth and then the record scratching, I actually thought the Browns were having a really good draft. And it doesn't mean like this. This doesn't mean like rip it up, throw it away, burn it. It's terrible. They still have, 3 picks they can make tomorrow as things stand right now. Chance to add even more players. Now, these are guys that might not even be on the roster, depending on how things go during training camp. So you have to think about that. But they still have a chance to add some guys. They still have a chance to, quote unquote, salvage the Dillon Gabriel pick that people don't like. But up until that point, man, like Mason Graham, even though it was controversial, really great, really solid pick, in my opinion. Top 5 player. He gets to line up next to Myles Garrett and just wreak havoc as a dynamic duo there from the interior of the offensive or the defensive line. I love that pick. Day 2, now confusing and kind of, I think there was confusing is not the right word. Disappointing, I think, for a lot of fans that they went defense again. Starting this draft defense with all the offensive needs we talked about and how all these mocks that people did had so many offensive things being addressed early on. I understand why there was some disappointment there, but I'm just gonna say it like Carson Schwessinger is actually a really good pick where they got him. He was slated as a round 2 guy, really good off-ball linebacker, can do a lot of different things for you, drop into coverage, instinctual in his decision making. So like the value made sense there. I get why they did it. It is a position they haven't invested a ton in over the years. So so it makes some sense. But I get where people were probably disappointed they went defense with these first 2 picks. But then you follow that up with, okay, now you go offense and you get my guy, Quinshon Judkins, so I've been banging the damn drum for since the college football playoff run that Ohio State went on. And then you follow it up with Harold Fannin Jr., who's a local kid that people are going to absolutely love and can become the next David Njoku. Like you were cooking until the Dillon Gabriel pick. And I think it's worth highlighting, obviously, those picks that were made.
I think you're dead on. I'm going to mispronounce his name. Schwessinger. How do I say it? Schwessinger. We're gonna. Hey, this is live practice. This is behind the scenes, everybody. Schwessinger.
I've practiced this name so many times today, and now that I heard you say it wrong, now I'm saying it wrong.
I got it wrong. We're gonna call him Carson.
Carson Schwessinger
from UCLA. Carson Schwessinger. This dude's an athletic freak, brother. Like that's the thing is like this guy is going to be his presence is going to be felt early and often on this defense. The other part of this is that a lot of people made the connection right away that this had something to do with JOK's health. I certainly did. I thought it was a direct correlation. Press conference, you were there. Andrew Berry said it didn't have anything to do with it. I don't know if we can believe that because I think it connects.
Real quick, I'll read you. So I don't mean to cut you off, but just to make it like he was asked directly, did the Carson Schwessinger pick have anything to do with JOK's recovery timeline? And Barry said, no, it doesn't. And it's the right decision. I totally understand, or the right question. I totally understand. That did not drive the decision for Carson. I want to be clear. And then the follow-up to that was, so if JOK were completely healthy, would you still consider Carson there? And he said yes. So I do think there was some transparency there. Obviously, you always take these things with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
There could still be some ominous, thought behind maybe he's not going to be ready for the season, so you address this need now. At the end of the day, it still is a position that the Browns have not spent a lot of resources on in the past, so I can still wrap my head around that, even if Andrew Berry's fibbing at least a little bit.
Yeah, and going into today, your linebacker room was Devin Bush, it was Jordan Hicks, it was JOK, and that was it. Like that's not something that inspires. That doesn't inspire much confidence. This Schwessinger cat can go. I think he's a great player. You and I have both been on the Quinshon Judkins train. Like I truthfully, Spence, I want to get your perspective on it because, like you said in our last show, we both watched a lot of Ohio State football. All right, you're in Andrew Berry's shoes. You're the GM. Are you picking Travion or are you picking Quinshon? What would you have done? I know we love Quinshon, but what is your perspective on which guy you would have won?
So, I mean, it's splitting hairs on it. I'm not mad. I wouldn't have been mad with either for this team. And they have different skill sets. Like Henderson being sort of like a 3-down guy who can also catch passes out of the backfield, I think like maybe gives him. I thought he'd go actually before Quinshawn because of
So
that
did
sort of
I.
increased value. But like he's also got the injury history. Quinshawn doesn't, you know. I think for Stefanski's offense, Quinshawn's the better fit
Dude.
because of how like the outside zone stuff, find the hole and go, power runner, Nick Chubb in that way. But also, like I said, he has that Kareem Hunt in him where he seeks out contact and really just like he'll blow you up. And he's got 4.4 40 time, like a 4.4 40 time. Like he's fast. So to me, Quinshawn had a little bit more that I like for what the Browns want to do. But again, if they had taken Henderson, I think you make it work, and it would have been fine. So
Dude.
I did see somebody, by the way, did bring this up. The last time the Patriots and Browns took running backs from the same backfield coming out of college, it was Nick Chubb and Sony Michel. One of those guys had a really good career, even though it's been derailed by injuries of late. The other guy obviously did not have quite as good of a career. And so I do think the parallels there are kind of interesting. This idea that like maybe the Browns made the right choice again, and Quinshawn's going to be the guy who has a great career, and Henderson will have a good career, but not a great career. We'll see. I hope, and to be clear, I hope Henderson does have a great career regardless. Yeah. But I did think that was just kind of interesting that somebody threw that out there.
Very interesting. I think the thing on Quinshawn, I was doing some research on it. I was writing a story on him. Again, catch it on our site down below, si.com/NFL/Browns. But his time at Ole Miss, he was a stud, dude. Like 1,500 yards his freshman year, 1,100 yards his sophomore year, and then he finished with just over 1,000 last year. And he like split. He had 90 less carries last year than he did in his years at Ole Miss. Like just absolutely crazy. 16 touchdowns his freshman year, 15 touchdowns his sophomore year, 14 touchdowns last year at Ohio State. And the one that's going to stick out to Buckeye fans who are also Browns fans is the 3-touchdown national championship game that he had. 2 on the ground, 1 in the air. He had 11 carries for 100 yards, 2 scores on the ground. He had that catch for a touchdown as well. I think that, the Quinshawn pick is one that like got everyone back on track. And then for me, the Harold Fannin Jr., the Ohio kid, the Canton kid, I couldn't be more excited about that pick. When that went through, that was the first time I felt like I was 10 years old again. Like I clapped, I cheered. I was like, let's go, because I think that this guy can be, and he's 20 years old. Like he's a young dude. And I think he can be like a true difference maker for the Browns.
Yeah, I loved both these picks. I thought Harold Fannin would still be there. Like I kind of thought you could take Harold Fannin where you took Dillon Gabriel. I thought he'd still be there.
Yeah, I agree.
But I mean, you could call it a reach, to an extent. But I'm not going to complain about that because this team needed tight end. It was a need for this team. You get a guy, like you said, he's 20 years old. Like he has a chance to really be molded into something great here with some mentorship from David Njoku, who obviously I talked about this earlier. Like David hated blocking. That's been one of the gripes with Fannin is like, can he be like an elite blocker at the next level? David became one of the best blocking tight ends in football because he worked at it. And so he can sort of instill some of that in Harold Fannin, I think, too, on top of Harold Fannin just being like a massive target for any quarterback. Think about this. Like if Flacco's the starter next year, David Njoku feasted and got a Pro Bowl season because he played with Joe Flacco. So there's a really good connection that could sort of be established there. These 2 picks gave the offense some direction. And that's something I think is worth being excited about for Browns fans. So, which is why like the 94 pick with Dillon Gabriel felt sort of perplexing because it was like, again, you had all this momentum and it just kind of felt like you took the wind out of the sails with a pick like that left everybody sort of confused. But I will say this, as much as those 2 picks were great, we have to talk about this. I don't know what this team's deal is with taking wide receivers early. They've used 3rd-round picks on him. They did it with Anthony Schwartz. They did it with Cedric Tillman, who's still on the roster, and they have high hopes for. But they refuse to use 1st or 2nd-round picks on wide receivers, and it's kind of bizarre. I don't know why. That is the one thing on offense, because even offensive tackle, like they at least with offensive tackle signed a couple guys, right? Like they added to the offensive line to an extent this offseason. But wide receiver, they've done next to nothing in terms of guys that they've added. Now maybe that brings Elijah Moore back into play potentially here. I don't know. But they signed DeAndre Carter. That's the one, and he's more of a special teams guy. That's the move that they've made this offseason so far at wide receiver. I don't know why they refuse to invest in that position. You'd think that with all the guys they've tried to draft later and develop and it hasn't happened, they'd feel more inclined to take somebody earlier and see if they actually pan out. But man, and it's funny because like we came into this draft thinking they finally were going to do that with Travis Hunter and they didn't. But I don't know. I don't know. We know Andrew Bear likes to trade for wide receivers, so maybe he's got something up his sleeve. That's the only thing I could think of.
But it also was like, it was yesterday we thought it was going to be Travis Hunter, right? They trade back, whatever. Then today everyone thought, I mean, I thought it was a foregone conclusion that they were going to take Luther Burden. Like, all right, hey, you punted on Travis. You turned Travis into 2 more picks. All right, now take one where, and the way I was like thinking about it today, I was like, all right, if Travis is here, Luther Burden's like here, right? You don't give up on offense, just on offense, right? I think Luther Burden's like in the same ballpark as Travis. It's like, okay, if we can turn this one into a couple more picks, we can still get this guy and be pretty good. I thought it was a foregone conclusion. Like I damn near had the jersey ordered with Burden, but and then they go, Schweissinger. I'm gonna get it right at some point, but and I thought like I heard the name come across and I like did a triple take. I was like, wait a second, like what? And then you like start learning about him, like, oh yeah, this guy can play. But you said it the other day. You texted me the other day, and you're like, "What's wrong with?" How did you say it? You said something like, "What's wrong with just the right pick?" or something. What's wrong with straight down the middle or something? It feels like they're always trying to outsmart or make the clever pick as opposed to just like, hey, can you throw us a bone? Like just throw us a bone. Like, come on. Just keep everybody. I forget how you said it, but like, it's just always is like, oh, who's that guy? And then, it's never the public perception, I guess you would.
Yeah. Well, and I also, it's funny, like we spend months on these mock drafts, which listen, I used to have a very hateful relationship with mock drafts. I've grown to like them more because it's a fun exercise. You have some fun with it, whatever. There's no consequence if you get stuff wrong at the end of the day. But like you spend all this time on mock drafts only for them to not matter whatsoever when you get to draft night. I mean, I haven't gotten a single pick right. Actually, that's not true because I did take Quinshon Judkins and I took Harold Fannin in a couple. So I guess I haven't gotten. I've gotten some picks right. But yeah,
we're doing a review. Hey, we're doing a review tomorrow. Just a heads up. By the way, we're pulling up our mocks. All right, that we did live, and we're going to scratch them out.
Oh, that's fine. I thought you meant like a review of like, hey, how did they do? Let's give them a grade. I don't do grades. We don't know how these players are going to be for like at least 3 years, so I'm not doing grades. But yeah, like the wide receiver part of this is perplexing why they don't invest in that more. But again, maybe Andrew Berea has something up his sleeve. I will say this, because they could use still like a slot guy. Tez Johnson's still out there. He was more of like an outside guy, if I remember correctly. But like he's somebody that I think did have a top 30 visit with the Browns. I'll tell you this. One guy that I think is really intriguing is Xavier Restrepo from Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, sometimes players defy what like the RAS score says and like what the measurements and things that you do. Because he had a terrible 40 time and all those different things. And people were like, this guy's just not very athletic. But put on the tape. That guy just balls. Like he just plays football and makes plays. I think he'd be a great idea for the Browns, like late in this draft to take a chance on if they want to pull the trigger. So that's somebody who I have my eye on at wide receiver, who I actually do kind of have some excitement about because he could fit perfectly into the slot. But like I don't know. We'll see what they have up their sleeve for tomorrow. But I continue to wonder why they don't invest in the wide receiver position.
Here's a question for you. I was talking with a buddy of mine, and we were talking about taking another running back here, probably at your next pick at 126. And the guy that kind of kept coming up is Devin Neal from Kansas. You take 2 running backs. I don't hate that actually, like because that is obviously a spot you get 2 young guys in who can go. Like, I think that would be a pretty solid idea. You bring Nick Chubb back on a 1-year minimum just to keep him around. But then you just totally flip that room. And now you got, and Kevin loves to run the rock. They're going to run the rock, like regardless of who's playing quarterback. I think that could also be a solid move. Definitely uncharacteristic taking 2 running backs, but I think something that I'm sure they're talking about.
I mean, listen, this is a deep running back class, so you could find value later on and still get guys that could contribute in some capacity. So we'll see. And I did want to clarify with Tez Johnson. Tez Johnson did line up a bunch of different places last year, and he has a really good route tree. If I remember, like my sort of studying up on him, but he wasn't strictly a slot guy. Maybe he could be, but I think those are the two guys, him and Restrepo, that I'm kind of watching going into day 3 here. So let's go back to the top here to get out of here. Was today a good day or a bad day as far as the Browns draft is concerned?
Yeah, it was a great day until pick 94. I think it ends as a good day, right? I think that Carson at the first pick of the second round, Schweisinger, and then you take Judkins with the second, and then Fannin with the third. I think you were trending towards like home freaking run. Like you were really there. And I truthfully don't think that. I think more value wise is where the negative part of Gabriel comes into play. I think he'll be fine. So that brings him down a little bit. But I would say this was a good day, not a great day. Could have been a great day. But I'm leaving today feeling solid about what they did.
Yeah, listen, I'm not going to let pick 94 like spoil what I believe has been
a bad taste in your mouth for sure. Like,
I mean, it's a weird way to end the day, going to the weekend. Last top 100 pick you have this year. Like it was strange, but I don't think it ruins what the Browns had, what the Browns had established in terms of a draft plan previously. Even though the 2 defensive picks back to back confused some people as well, which again, I said I understand. I don't know. I don't think it ruins it completely, but I do think the best. I think you described it best. It puts a bad taste in your mouth. But I'm still going to say today was a good day overall. Maybe I'm biased because I loved Quinshon Judkins so much that you could have drafted Kyle McCord at 94, and I would have been like, it was still a good day. You got Quinshon Judkins. It's a good day in my book. But regardless, I hope fans wake up tomorrow, and while still probably being a little bit confused by the Dillon Gabriel pick, at least still feel like the Browns made moves so far this weekend that makes sense and have the team and the roster, trending in the right direction. I'm not saying they're going to be playoff contenders next year, but they're making picks that help fill out this roster, I think, with the future in mind, which is an important thing.
I would say one thing to just jump on that. If, I would encourage everybody listening, everybody watching here, just to get outside of the walls of Cleveland to see how the national media, the national folks are viewing this draft for the Browns. And you're going to find that it is overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah.
Even with the Dillon Gabriel pick. We get so close to it because we're in it. And we're like, hey, we know the inner workings. We study these guys and we think about them scoring touchdowns at Huntington Bank Field and all of this stuff. But when you get outside the walls of Cleveland and everyone's kind of looking at this draft, it is widely regarded to this point as one of the top drafts in the NFL, which is good perspective, even after the Dillon Gabriel pick. So I encourage a lot of folks to do that. Go check out what other people are saying about it, kind of outside of Cleveland.
I think that's well said. I will encourage you to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel here if you're watching there.
Can I get one plug in?
Sure.
Plug, and this even for you. You don't even know I did this, but I did a film review of Harold Fannin. I went back and grabbed a couple clips. It's on our YouTube page. I linked it in the description below. A fun watch. It's 10 minutes. I would encourage you to jump in there. This dude's a freak. I love him. He's going to be great for us.
So there you go. Some bonus content from Anthony Moeglin. You can find that at the YouTube channel, Cleveland Browns on SI. You can find our day 1 recap from last night. And you can find us again after day 3 doing more of the same, recapping whatever transpires with the Browns in their final 3 picks on Saturday. So, and of course, read all of our content. There's been a ton of stuff going up over there. Cleveland Browns on SI, si.com/NFL/Browns. Just throughout the draft the last couple of days. So much content. So go over there, find us on YouTube, and keep on following along with all things Cleveland Browns, the Cleveland Browns on SI. Have a good night, Cleveland. We'll talk to you tomorrow.